Okay, so we've gone through the investor side of the equation. We have talked about now how preferred returns are paid out. We talked about how quarterly returns are paid out and how cash flow is going to look like to you as the investor. We've talked about what's going to happen when we sell a property and how money gets distributed and how the investors get their capital back first on any type of sale event, and then get to participate with 50% of the upside from what's been done. So you may be asking yourself, well, what about the other 50%? What's going on with that? Is that all going to HJH investments? How does that work? So that's what we'll talk about next, is how that works. We've talked about this as in an LLC. Very conveniently, the investors have 50%, and if you extend and put 0.00 at the end, you have 5,000 shares. Each one of our LLCs has 10,000 shares in it. The investors have 5,000 shares, and they are called the B shares. There's another 5,000 shares that needs to be distributed as well. You're going to notice that I'm writing some percentages that have a spread on them on this side, where this was very fixed. For our investors, it's the same thing every time. The only thing that may change is the preferred return, whether it's a 6 or a 7 or an 8% preferred, but most of them, again, are an 8% preferred return. On the other side of the equation, we're going to put together a collection of benefits for the investors to help protect the investors' capital. And we start out by bringing in what I call a big dog, a horse, a big horse, a whale, somebody with a great amount of net worth to help protect the scenario. And that person is going to do two things. One, they're going to sign on the debt. And two, they're going to act as a backstop to the deal. One of the things that we do in our deals is we raise additional capital for reserves. And we tend to do as much or more in most cases than most others that do what we do. Because as we're looking at how to protect investor capital, one, we're going to go buy a property that's 20 to 25% or more under the value of the property. That creates a delta, a spread, so that spread's there before we ever look at the equity that the investors are bringing in, and then the debt that's down below that as well. That spread, that's the first way that we do that. The second way is we raise more than ample reserves on a property so that if something goes wrong, we have an extended period of time in order to fix that deal. Now, I will tell you, you will make a lower return because I raise more capital, okay? I will make, and the A shares in the equation will make significantly less than they would if I did not raise that much capital. My job is not to make as much money as HJH Investments can. My job is to first protect your capital and then to grow your capital. So I will bring in a big dog, a horse, or a whale to sign on the debt and take all of that responsibility of the debt from the investors. They will also be responsible, along with myself, should we ever have a shortfall, for loaning capital to the LLC should we run out of reserves on the property, so that we don't ever have to go and ask for additional capital from the investor side of the equation. Now, to have somebody that's that powerful and strong, I have some conditions. They must have at least 3 to 5 times the net worth of the property or more. Their net worth, in other words, has to be 5 times what the property price is. So if we're buying a property for $5 million, I want that individual to have at least a $20 to $30 million net worth in order to be the person that gets to sign on the debt. They also need to have enough liquidity that they could pay off the loan. So on a $5 million deal, we're probably getting a $3.5 million loan. That person needs to be able to write a check at any point in time during our ownership and pay off that loan should it become necessary. So those are my qualifications in order for somebody to play in this role. Now for that, they are going to receive 20 to 22% of the ownership of the property. Now, they do not get paid any cash flow until after the preferred returns come out. The investors still come first. They will just participate along with the investors and everyone else in the cash flow afterwards. Same thing when we sell the property. Only after everything's paid, including the investors having all their capital back, then they will get to participate in the upside to the extent of their ownership. Now, I've made a spread between 20 and 22, and that's very purposely done. To give you an example, if I were to go purchase a Bank of America ground lease that had 20 years left on it, and I got a 20-year mortgage on that, well, there's very, 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 very little risk that Bank of America is not going to make their payments. So the benefits that this individual was bringing don't warrant 20 or even 22 or even 15% on the deal, because there's so little to be concerned about during that period of time. They may get 10. So when I said there's flexibility on this side, this is an example of that. On a typical one of our deals, we have found that this gives the appropriate amount of benefits to that individual that they want to do that and are happy to come in and participate in helping to protect the deal. This person does not have to invest any capital themselves. They can just bring their statement if they want to. However, I find oftentimes that my debt signers get excited about the deals they're going into and will bring some of the down payment money and participate on this side of the equation or the investor side of the equation as well. So that covers the person that signs on the debt. The next thing that we look at are enhancers. You'll notice I'm putting an 8 to 15% spread on there too. Some examples of what an enhancer is. If I have a real estate broker in Louisville, Kentucky, who has a client that has some capital that they are looking to place, if that broker makes a phone call to me and says, hey, I'd like to introduce you to my client, I may decide that if their client invests, I may decide that they might get a portion of the ownership of the deal. I have a very big passion for real estate brokers. I've noted over the years that real estate brokers don't typically own a tremendous amount of real estate for themselves. And typically every time the market changes, they become the first 5 letters of the word broker, which is broke. And so participating in making sure that they have cash flow, even during their downturns in their real estate business, is very exciting to me. So I've always welcomed real estate agents to introduce me to their clients, etc. As a love offering, if you will, out of that, they oftentimes will participate in my real estate investments on the other side. Let me give you another example of an enhancer. If I have an individual, a broker, let's say this time they're in Austin, Texas, and that broker gets a deal under control, signs a purchase contract, and brings it to me and says, hey Corey, check this out, look at what I've got. I've got your 10.5 cap, triple net leased Walgreens with 7 years left on a lease. I'm going to high five that broker. Great job. How can I help you, Mr. Broker? Well, Corey, HJH Investments raises capital to buy deals like this. I don't really have that network. Can I have a little piece of the ownership of the deal because I have found this great deal? And I will give them a hug, and I said, of course I will. And so we will bring together that, and I may give them anywhere from 5, 7, 10% of the ownership of the deal just for finding it and gaining control of the property and then bringing it to me. So those are a couple of examples of enhancers. In any given deal, there's anywhere from 8 to 15% of the ownership of the deal that goes to the enhancers. The final section that we'll take a look at is the syndication team. And in this case, if you invest in an HJH Investments deal, that's going to be HJH. HJH Investments is going to get the balance of whatever is left over here. So that could be anywhere from 15 to 22, 23% that we'll end up with in ownership of the deal for finding the deal, doing the due diligence, making sure it really is what it is, getting the lender involved, and then getting the right investors involved and protecting their capital going forward. And then being responsible for closing it, and then being responsible for asset managing and making the important decisions on that property after we close. All of that equates to a 15 to 23% ownership. We have found that this collection of benefits provides the maximum amount of protection that we can do to protect the investor capital and then grow it, and still gives enough of benefits for everybody that's involved. If you ever invest in syndication of any type, you want your syndication team to have ownership in the deal. You want them to have significant ownership, enough that they have motivation that when things go wrong, which in real estate deals sometimes they do, that they have incentive to go work and fix the deal and put it back together to take care of the investor capital that's out in front of them. So it's very important that you've got somebody that has a piece of what's going on. These are the A shares, and again, we've got 5,000 A shares and 5,000 B shares. So whatever the math of that is going to add up and equal a total of 50%. So this covers the structure that we invest in and how distributions are made both on cash flow and on sale.